The recorder is on. The man smiles, a cold, almost defiant smile. Between the dry click and the heavy silence, he utters a sentence that cuts through the room like a blade. The problem isn't what I did. It's what no one will be able to prove. The air freezes. The camera focuses on his blank stare as the tension grows, unbearable, almost palpable. The scene cuts to total darkness. A deep, almost whispered voice emerges from the silence. These are the conversations the FBI doesn't want you to hear. Have you ever wondered what goes through a killer's mind in their final moments? What do they confess when they know there's no escape? What do they say when time finally runs out? What you'll discover now may surprise you, and perhaps even stir something you never knew existed within you. This video is not for those seeking easy answers. It's not for those who fear the darker side of human nature. Here we'll delve deep into interviews that were sealed, hidden under layers of secrecy and silence, kept under lock and key by the FBI. Interviews so disturbing, so dense they seem like something out of a nightmare. Because sometimes the truth is scarier than any fiction. Have you ever felt that chill down your spine when you imagine what someone sentenced to death has to say? Words that should never reach you. Revelations that can turn official stories upside down, challenging official versions, shedding light where darkness seemed absolute. These are accounts of murderers, criminals who faced their last hour, whose testimonies were suppressed, not by chance but out of fear of what might be revealed. With every sealed interview, there's an unanswered question. A forced silence that's uncomfortable. What makes these recordings considered dangerous? What do they reveal? And why, even with justice served, do those in power insist on keeping these secrets hidden? What do they fear? More than that, who's behind this censorship? Have you ever thought about this? The line between justice and control becomes blurred, and it's this gray area we're about to enter. Imagine hearing for the first time the words of a convict who, instead of fear, conveys cold calm. Or the heavy sigh of a man about to face death, who, instead of regret, offers a riddle, a clue no one has ever followed. What would happen if these interviews were released tomorrow? Do you think we would change the way we understand crime? Or that the truth would be more weighty than any judgment? But make no mistake, these recordings aren't just confessions. They're open doors to a world where psychology and cruelty intertwine in a sinister game. A game of power, manipulation, and dark secrets, where what's said can change everything. Every word, every pause, every whisper carries a weight that echoes far beyond the prison walls. Here, darkness isn't just a setting, it's an atmosphere that envelopes every sentence, every silence, every breath. You'll feel the tension build, the anxiety tighten in your chest, the mystery deepen. Because deep down, what these men said before their execution isn't just about them. It's about the fragility of truth, about the fear of what might truly be revealed. And now, without warning, without preparation, we'll open the door to these silent voices, to the secrets guarded with iron and fire. What you're about to hear isn't for everyone. It's an invitation to face the darkest side of humanity, to question everything that's been said, to feel, firsthand, the weight of the silence the FBI insists on maintaining. Hold your breath. Because the truth begins now, but what comes next will leave you restless, wanting more, needing to understand how deep the abyss goes. The recorder is still running. The darkness won't go away. And the words that should never have been said are about to come out. The silence after those words fills the room. The air thickens, and it becomes clear that this was no ordinary confession. It was as if, in that moment, the truth had transformed into an entity no one wanted to confront. For decades, interviews with death row inmates, men and women who faced the end of their rope, have held secrets that transcend the limits of what we consider acceptable to hear. Secrets that, out of fear, power, or calculated strategies, were sealed and kept from public knowledge. What could be so heavy that the authorities would impose absolute silence? Imagine a dark room, an FBI agent with a tape recorder in hand, and on the other side, someone with nothing left to lose. These interviews capture fragments of a mind that has already undergone a complete transformation, from freedom to isolation, from denial to acceptance, from fear to cold, calculated lucidity. And despite the dense atmosphere, these are not just stories of cruelty or regret. They are accounts that expose a hidden truth, camouflaged among carefully chosen words, strategic silences, and revelations that challenge what was previously known. These moments are a deep dive into the behind-the-scenes of crime, the mind, and justice. Each sealed interview represents a decision made, not just by the convicted person, but by those on the other side of the table, by the institutions that control what should and shouldn't come to light. These decisions carry a much greater impact than one might imagine, because they reveal the fine line between truth and narrative control. Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when justice mixes with the fear of revealing? When layers of secrecy pile up to protect not only the guilty, but also structures that prefer silence. In these dialogues between the convicted man and the agent, the transformation goes beyond the body about to be consumed by time. The mentality that emerges is unsettling, charged with a complexity that challenges our notions of guilt, regret, and justice. Sometimes it's the coldness that frightens. Other times, it's the whispered desperation hidden between the words. Some confess to crimes that were never officially attributed to them, mixing truths with lies in a dance that confuses and challenges the investigator. And most disturbingly, there are moments when they talk about other crimes, other characters, other truths that should never have been exposed. What you'll discover next is a collection of these fragments of shadow and light, these voices that attempted to tell a larger story, that revealed a side the public never saw. Among these sealed interviews are testimonies that expose manipulation, suggest conspiracies, and expose the fear behind the curtains of justice. It's an intricate web where each thread pulls on another, connecting crimes, lies, and hidden truths. These recordings aren't just evidence of a dark past. They're keys that can open doors to a deeper understanding of the impact human decisions have on destiny, memory, and history. And even though many of them are locked away, what has leaked, what has escaped, whether through mistakes or defiance on the part of those who guarded them, is enough to provoke unease. Have you ever felt that unease, that feeling that there's something beyond what we're told? Something only those behind the scenes know? Behind every word lies a silent power struggle, a battle between the desire to reveal and the need to conceal. These encounters between the convicted and the authorities expose a gray area where truth becomes a valuable and dangerous currency. They force us to question not only the crimes themselves, but the very way we view what is permitted to be known. After all, what happens when the revelations are so disturbing that they threaten to shake the very foundations of the system? The criminal psychology that emerges from these interviews is complex and multifaceted. It's not just about the brutal acts the convicts committed, but about how they perceive themselves in the face of death, how they manipulate their discourse, how they attempt to leave a lasting mark, whether to justify themselves, to blame others, or to confess something that would never be heard in life. It's a transformation that involves conscience, guilt, and fear, but also reveals a cold, calculating, and in some cases, surprisingly lucid mindset. This murky terrain where crime, justice, and psychology collide is precisely where these sealed interviews act as a distorted mirror of reality. They show us that what we think we know about criminals may be only superficial, and that the true impact of these accounts goes far beyond the obvious. These never-released words carry the potential to change narratives, influence future investigations, and even transform public perception of cases we thought were closed. Have you ever imagined what it would be like if these voices were heard? If the imposed silence were broken and hidden truths emerged into the world? The power of these interviews lies precisely in what they conceal, and in the fear that this concealment provokes. Now, as we move forward, we will unveil the first fragments of these confessions, understand what lies behind the secrecy, and feel the weight of each revelation. And so, amidst this labyrinth of words and shadows, we begin to unravel the secrets the FBI refused to reveal. Because not every truth is simple, and some are so dangerous that their disclosure could shake the very concept of justice as we know it. The recorder remains running and voices begin to emerge, amid sighs, suppressed laughter, and heavy silences. The transformation has already begun. The air in the room seems to grow even heavier when, on the other end of the recorder, a hoarse voice breaks the silence. It's not the voice of a resigned man, nor that of a common criminal. It's the tense tone of someone who knows more than he can say, someone carrying a truth that threatens to dismantle everything built around him. "I didn't do it," he says with unsettling calm. "Not the way they say. If you knew what really happened, you'd understand why." The interview, which until then seemed like just another fragment of a foretold end, turns into a labyrinth of secrets and contradictions. The convicted man doesn't simply deny the crime for which he was sentenced. He reveals names, locations, and details that, when cross-referenced with internal investigations and documents never made public, match official information. Information that, curiously, has never reached the public eye. Which brings us to a disturbing question. Why was this evidence, why were these indications never brought to light? Why keep secret something that could, in theory, correct an injustice? The impact of this confession is not just personal, it's institutional. An old mentality that prioritizes silence, that manipulates decisions to maintain a comfortable narrative, even if it's far from the truth. This shift in the interview's dynamics reveals a much larger game than we imagine. We're not just dealing with a man trying to save his own skin. We're dealing with a hidden truth, carefully protected behind the scenes. And the consequences of this concealment extend beyond his case. They reverberate throughout the system, the principles of justice, and the public's perception of crime and punishment. You might even wonder, isn't this just the words of a convicted man trying to justify himself? But the problem is that some of this information coincides with details only experienced investigators and secret documents know. And the silence that followed wasn't a coincidence, it was a decision. A decision made at the height of power to prevent the truth from emerging. Over the decades, the mentality of protecting the system at any cost has resulted in thousands of pages being sealed, files hidden, and recordings silenced. The transformation hasn't just affected the convicted person, but also the structure surrounding them, where decisions are shaped by vested interests, where controlling the narrative trumps the pursuit of real justice. This first revelation is just one layer of what we're about to uncover. The weight of what was said, the silence that followed, all of this forms a pattern. A pattern of repeated concealments, a web of veiled revelations and strategic silences. Each unsaid word carries as much weight as each confession that escapes the condemned man's mouth. And this complexity, this play of light and shadow, is what gives the theme an even deeper dimension. Because what's at stake here isn't just the fate of one man, but the integrity of the system. It's the line between what we want to believe and what actually happened, the line between the fear of facing the truth and the need to seek real transformation. Have you ever stopped to consider the cost of these decisions? The impact they have on families, on the victims' memories, on the official history we follow? What happens when what should have been a just conviction becomes, in fact, silence about a mistake, or even about a greater crime that was never revealed? In the shadows of these sealed interviews, a different portrait than we know begins to emerge. A portrait that challenges the limits of perception and forces us to face the discomfort of doubt. Because sometimes the greatest truth is hidden exactly where we least expect it. And it is on this uncertain terrain that the next layers of the story unfold, revealing not only the confessions, but the silent echoes they provoke, echoes that reverberate far beyond the walls of the interview room, penetrating the backstage of power, justice, and the human mind itself. The transformation these accounts provoke is inevitable. Each word carries an energy that destabilizes what we believe to be solid. And so, the search for what is real continues, pulsing in the silence of recordings that should never have been made, or that should never have been silenced. These lost voices, these secrets locked away in drawers that time has nearly erased, only remain alive because you chose to listen to them. Every fragment, every silence that fills the darkness, depends on who is on the other side, willing to delve deep into what many try to hide. If you feel that this search for truth, even when it is uncomfortable and painful, makes sense to you, this is the right place. Here it's not just about stories, it's about building together a space where what's hidden can come to light. The journey is long, the revelations are heavy, and for this to continue happening, it takes more than curiosity. It takes commitment. Your presence, your voice, transform these shadows into something tangible, something real. So, if these words touched something deep inside you, if this mystery still pulsates and refuses to be left behind, stay tuned. This channel thrives on those who aren't afraid to face the darkness, who want to understand what's behind the curtain. Your subscription isn't a simple click. It's a guarantee that we'll continue breaking the silence, revealing what they insist on hiding. It's not about numbers but about true connection. A silent pact between those who seek and those who deliver the hidden truth. So, be part of this circle. Because the story doesn't end here. In fact, it's only beginning to reveal its darkest side. Within the silence surrounding these recordings lies an invisible protocol, a fine line separating what can be revealed from what must be kept hidden. The FBI behind closed doors wields this control with surgical precision, defining which interviews are sensitive material, which words can be made public, and which must remain sealed forever, or at least until the time seems safe to release the truth. These decisions aren't merely bureaucratic. They're impactful choices, shaped by a mindset that balances the pursuit of justice with the fear of unpredictable consequences. Imagine the effect a confession could have if exposed before trial, or how a revelation could influence the minds of jurors, interfering in the delicate balance that determines a human being's destiny. Therefore, silence is imposed, rigorous, almost implacable. But there's more. Some of these sealed interviews conceal information that could expose ongoing investigations, hidden connections between cases, or powerful individuals who shouldn't be named. The secrecy protocol, then, acts as a shield that protects not only the judicial process but also the behind-the-scenes details where uncomfortable truths are suppressed. The balance between transparency and secrecy is a fraught one, and each decision reverberates across multiple spheres of power. At the same time, this routine of control and censorship causes invisible transformations. The agents responsible for these recordings know that in every silenced word lies the possibility of a different world, of a truth that could rewrite history. Awareness of this weight alters the mindset of those operating behind the scenes, a subtle balancing act between ethics, duty, and interest that don't always converge. Stay with me until the end because what follows reveals precisely these hidden tensions. The importance of understanding how decisions are made, who makes them, and why for such dark reasons, some people's words never reach the surface. This is a fundamental key to understanding the real impact of these interviews, which goes far beyond what they appear. Each sealed recording, each hidden testimony, carries with it a story of difficult decisions, ethical dilemmas, and above all, a latent fear of what the truth can cause. It's a scenario where justice coexists with secrecy, and where silence is often the greatest weapon. And behind this veil of secrecy, revelations emerge that will shake your perception of the system, of the men who judge, and of those being judged. Because at its core, this isn't just a story about crimes or convictions, but about the complex transformation that occurs when the truth is selectively withheld, and the price we all pay. At this point, it becomes clear that what has never been heard is as important as what has been confessed. And that, in this game of shadows, every detail can be a key piece in dismantling or reinforcing official narratives. The silence imposed by FBI protocol is more than a technical barrier, it's a human decision full of intentions, fears, and consequences. And understanding this layer is essential for anyone who wants to go beyond the surface and explore the true impact of these interviews. It is like a hidden map, a route between the visible and the invisible, where decisions shape not only judicial processes, but also collective memory, public perception, and even emotional justice for victims and their families. Therefore, this journey doesn't end here. What follows delves even deeper into the behind-the-scenes of this strategic silence, uncovering layers of mystery and revelations that transform the way we view crime, guilt, and power. And while the words remain hidden, waiting to be heard, the story continues, pulsing in the silence that should never have existed. The sound of laughter echoed through the small, cold room, where the recorder captured every second of that almost surreal moment. Throughout the interview, the man in front smiled and laughed, sometimes with a sharp guffaw, other times with a low, almost mocking chuckle. He didn't answer direct questions, wouldn't commit to any statement. It was as if the very notion of reality was being challenged there, before the eyes of the astonished agent, who jotted down every detail, trying to decipher the meaning of that disconcerting behavior. It was more than nervousness or provocation. That constant laughter seemed like a mask, a defense mechanism against the weight of the final moment, a psychological transformation few can comprehend. The condemned man's mindset, exposed in such an unusual way, opened a window into the limits of what the human mind can bear in the face of imminent death. It was a silent interplay between laughter and fear, between escape and the hidden truth that stubbornly lingered deep within that gaze. But it was in the final seconds, when the laughter began to fade and silence fell over the room, that something changed. The man moved closer to the agent, almost as if revealing a secret whispered in the darkness. The words that emerged in that split second were so disturbing that the audio was immediately sealed, classified as top secret. To this day, what was said in that final exchange remains an enigma, one of the deepest and most disturbing mysteries among the closely guarded interviews. That final laugh wasn't just an isolated gesture. It was an expression of human complexity faced with the impact of death and the internal transformation it provokes. A disturbing echo behind the scenes of the system, where decisions about what can and cannot be revealed carry immense weight, not only for the condemned but for all those who remain silent. The hidden truth behind that final whisper fuels theories, speculations, and doubts that transcend the boundaries of crime and criminal psychology. What could be so powerful, so dangerous, that it was sealed away forever? What do you think was said? What remains hidden in those shadowy words? These questions aren't just morbid curiosities. They reflect the real impact of decisions made behind the scenes, where controlling the narrative can forever change the perception of what happened. With each sealed recording, the transformation of the story becomes more profound. Revelations that become fragmented, incomplete truths, fueling mystery and tension. And it's on this uncertain terrain that these voices, amidst laughter and whispers, begin to reveal what many have tried to hide. It's not just about crimes but a larger game, where silence can be as eloquent as the most detailed confession. The doubt that hangs in the air, as heavy as the silence surrounding these sealed recordings, is almost impossible to ignore. Were some of these interviews withheld to protect something greater than the simple integrity of the judicial process? Or perhaps to avoid a panic that could shake entire structures? This question is not merely speculative. It arises from the shadows that lurk behind the scenes of these final confessions, from decisions that go beyond the realm of crime to enter territories of power and influence. There's a fine line between what the public has a right to know and what authorities believe is too dangerous to reveal. In many cases, the imposed silence isn't just to protect the convicted person or the investigation itself, but to shield names and institutions that could be shaken by mere mention. Names that, when uttered between the lines of these interviews, carry the potential to destabilize reputations, destroy alliances, and even provoke silent revolts in the corridors of power. Profound transformations occur not only in the minds of those convicted, but also in the mindsets of those who decide what can be revealed. Decisions made behind the scenes, hidden from the public eye, shape the flow of hidden truth, concealing information that could reveal networks of manipulation or collusion. Real-life cases show that this practice is not uncommon. Halted investigations, missing files, testimonies that simply disappear from the court documents. The impact of these choices is immense, not only because they alter the public's perception of what happened, but because they create fertile ground for conspiracy theories, legitimate doubts, and a growing sense that justice is sometimes selective. The fear that the truth may shake more than comfortable certainties translates into a complex strategy of control, where the official narrative is carefully crafted to avoid chaos. But what if, behind this control, there's also self-protection? Self-protection not only of institutions, but of the agents working on these investigations themselves, of those involved in classified operations that, if exposed, could put lives at risk. The game of interest becomes a minefield, where transforming information into secrecy may be the only way to guarantee the safety of many, or at least that's how the justification is presented. This duality between manipulation and self-protection creates a constant tension, an invisible conflict that accompanies every decision about what can and cannot be revealed. The hidden truth in this scenario becomes a valuable currency, disputed between those who want to protect the established order and those who seek full justice. Have you ever felt the weight of this doubt? The discomfort of knowing that, behind the official version, there may exist a parallel universe of forbidden revelations? It's precisely this feeling that makes these sealed interviews so unsettling. They're not just records of the past, but keys to doors most people prefer to keep closed. And in the midst of this game, the transformation of public perception is inevitable. The more we learn about these behind-the-scenes details, the further we move away from absolute certainty and into the realm of doubt and the relentless search for the truth. A place where every partial revelation fuels the desire for more, where the impact of a single word can echo for years, changing the course of investigations, judicial decisions, and even the fate of those involved. Which leads us to reflect: who really controls this narrative? And how far does their power to decide what the public should know extend? This subtle manipulation or strategic self-protection reveals not only the complexity of the system but also the fragility of the trust we place in it. Behind the silent walls of these interviews, the echo of these questions resonates loudly. They challenge our understanding, pushing us into a realm where the line between justice and concealment blurs. And as we peel back these layers, it becomes clear that the impact of these decisions goes beyond the confines of prisons and courts. They directly impact how we understand the world, how we deal with the truth, and, most importantly, how we transform ourselves in the face of the unknown that insists on remaining hidden. The story that emerges here isn't just about crimes and convictions. It's about the power play that drives these revelations, the choices made to preserve the status quo, and the consequences of those choices for all of us. Thus, we continue to enter this universe where silence speaks louder than words, and where the hidden truth can be, at the same time, the greatest weapon and the most dangerous secret. As these voices echo in the darkness, it's impossible not to feel the weight of everything that's been hidden. The pain that hasn't been told, the injustice that lingers like a shadow. Have you ever felt that anguish? That silent revolt that arises when we realize the truth has been locked away, forgotten? If any of this resonated with you, leave a word in the comments. It could be silence, justice, truth, whatever resonates in your heart right now. It's a simple yet powerful gesture. A collective outburst, a space where the burden we carry can find an echo. This movement isn't just symbolic. It fuels the channel, strengthening this community that seeks to hear what many have tried to silence. Your words become resistance. Your voice is part of this transformation. So speak, right? Participate in this silent pact. Because here, each comment is a light that keeps this search, this restlessness, alive. And as the answers accumulate, We continue together, uncovering the secrets that still insist on not being revealed. In the tangle of secret archives, there are stories that simply disappear. Records that have vanished without a trace, as if erased from official memory. Among these shadows is the so-called lost interview, a recording that should never have escaped the system's vaults, but whose echo leaked, fragmented, into obscure forums frequented by retired agents, in veiled and suspicious conversations. The partial transcription of this banned audio reveals details so disturbing that they go beyond the crimes officially attributed to the convicted man. They are fragments of a puzzle never before put together for the public, clues that could transform a conviction into something much more complex, perhaps even a web of connections and motivations never before revealed. These leaked revelations are no mere coincidence. They are clear indications of a hidden truth, buried amid behind-the-scenes decisions and manipulations. The mindset that controls these secrets acts with surgical precision, choosing what can emerge and what must remain buried. It's a constant battle between light and shadow, where each piece of suppressed information alters the impact the story would have if it were known in full. Imagine what this lost interview could mean. Completely transform the official narrative, changing the way we view the convicted person, the crime, and even the system that judged them. It's a transformation that goes far beyond individual justice. It touches the core of power, of decisions made in rooms where few have access, where truth is a scarce and expensive resource. The leak on anonymous forums serves as a rare window into these behind-the-scenes details, a breath of fresh air that, even fragmented, provokes a visceral reaction in those seeking to understand what really happened. But the fragility of this information also highlights the constant danger of manipulation. Who filters these truths and for what purpose? Stay with me until the end, because what lies ahead will deepen this story. You'll discover how these lost truths can shake foundations, provoke unexpected transformations, and reveal that behind each recording lies a universe of decisions that echo far beyond the cell where the condemned man awaited his fate. This mystery isn't just about a missing interview, but about what it represents. The invisible line that separates what we're told from what should actually be said. And in this space between the spoken word and the hidden word, the search for truth faces its greatest challenge. The impact of these leaked revelations is not limited to criminal details. They change the way we view power and justice, how we perceive the fragility of human decisions and the weight of the consequences we bear as a society. The story of the lost interview is more than a mystery. It is an invitation to question, to look beyond the surface and understand that, often, silence has as much to say as any confession. And so, we continue to explore the limits of what we know and what is hidden from us, penetrating ever deeper into a labyrinth where the shadows speak, but only to those willing to listen. In the somber silence of the last night, when the cell lights seem to dim along with all hope, something shifts in the condemned man's mind. It's as if time, which until then seemed eternal, begins to flow differently, accelerating thoughts, expanding emotions, bringing to the surface memories and feelings that had been buried for years. The psychology of this moment is a minefield, where human fragility mingles with the urgency of a truth that may escape for the first and last time. Speaking on the brink of death isn't just a matter of conscience about to dissolve, but a profound transformation of mindset. At that moment, the defenses built up over years begin to crumble, giving way to confessions that, until then, seemed impossible. Some are filled with regret, silent tears of someone seeking forgiveness that may never come. Others, however, emerge coldly, almost calculatedly, as if the condemned were using their final words to cast doubt, manipulate perceptions, or leave coded messages. The science of the human mind documents surprising patterns in this final ritual. Convicted prisoners often reveal aspects of their stories they've never shared before, as if the weight of the sentence creates a psychological pressure capable of breaking down internal barriers. Requests for forgiveness can be mixed with detailed confessions, revelations of hidden complicity, or even statements that challenge everything the court believed it knew. But these confessions aren't always spontaneous. In some cases, they reflect a last-ditch attempt to control what will be remembered, to leave a mark, an alternative version of the truth that survives the silence of the execution. This ambiguity between sincerity and strategy makes the moment all the more fascinating and disturbing. When a man is about to face his end, his final decisions carry an emotional and psychological burden that goes far beyond the crime for which he was convicted. It's an internal struggle between accepting reality, confronting his own demons, and in many cases, using the final moment to transform what will become his public memory. This mental transformation creates a field of tension where hidden truth can mingle with conscious manipulation, and where each word takes on immense weight, capable of forever altering narratives and judgments. Have you ever imagined what goes through the mind of someone who knows they're going to disappear? That this will be their last chance to speak and perhaps be heard, even if only by a recorder or by agents of the system. This psychological pressure can unleash truths that defy all logic, changing the way we understand the past and the impact of decisions made. It is at this point that the backstory of criminal psychology becomes a fertile ground for study and speculation. The line between genuine confession and a final tactic of self-protection is tenuous and often indecipherable. The mind of the condemned man on the brink of death is a terrain where past and present intertwine, where regret mixes with fear, and where the revelation of a hidden truth can be both a liberation and a trap. The impact of these final decisions resonates far beyond the moment of execution. It affects families, investigators, and even collective memory, as every recorded word, every heavy silence, is a piece that helps construct or deconstruct the official story. In the tangle of 8 interviews, an invisible thread begins to emerge, intertwining words, silences, and secrets that at first seemed isolated, disconnected. But as we delve deeper into these accounts, a constellation of coincidences reveals itself, subtle and disturbing. Names that appear in different testimonies, places described with nearly identical details, clues that were not incorporated into the official records. All this forms a hidden mosaic that challenges the public version of history. It's not just curiosity that leads us to notice these repetitions. It's the uneasy feeling that the convicted knew more than they admitted or were allowed to say. This realization opens a window into the behind-the-scenes of investigations and trials, where decisions about what would be revealed seem to follow an invisible script, created to protect something or someone beyond conventional justice. The transformation these discoveries provoke in our mindset is profound. The idea that the system may be silencing real connections between crimes, between people, and between versions of the truth completely changes our understanding of what conviction and punishment mean. Each name repeated is a piece that can link one crime to another, a clue that could reveal hidden networks, alliances, or conspiracies that remain hidden beneath layers of silence. But why don't these connections appear in official documents? Why haven't the investigations ever addressed these echoes among the testimonies? The answer may lie in behind-the-scenes decisions, where the impact of exposing these connections could be greater than any individual conviction. Revelations that call into question the integrity of processes, the safety of those involved, and the image of powerful institutions. The game of narrative control becomes evident when we realize that these interviews are fragments of a much larger truth, a hidden truth that should never be fully revealed. This concealment shapes our perception of justice, creating a constant tension between what we know, what we believe, and what we are allowed to discover. As we analyze these coincidences, patterns emerge that indicate a greater complexity than meets the eye. Similar descriptions of locations, crime scenes, hideouts, meeting points, point to an invisible web that weaves together different stories. These are details that, for those who listen carefully, cannot go unnoticed, as if they were intentionally left codes, small glimpses of a darker truth. These accounts, when placed side by side, show not only the psychological impact of these connections on the convicts themselves, but also the consequences these revelations could have had if they had been explored further. The transformation of the official narrative into a field of uncertainty reveals a silent battle between the desire for full justice and the fear of what such justice might unleash. Imagine how these clues could alter the mindset of investigators, the way trials were conducted, and even the fate of those ultimately sentenced. The weight of these coincidences goes far beyond the isolated crime. They shed light on decisions that shaped not only lives but also the fabric of an entire criminal network that the system preferred to keep hidden. As these invisible connections begin to reveal themselves, you realize the story is far from over. Every detail, every repeated name, every hidden clue is an invitation to delve deeper, to look into what few have the courage to face. If this mystery captivates you as it does me, if the desire to understand what lies behind these confessions draws you into this plot, join this quest. Your presence here is what keeps this space alive, what allows us to continue uncovering secrets that insist on remaining hidden. Subscribing isn't just a gesture, it's a silent commitment, an alliance between those who seek the truth and those who share these stories. I promise the path we're on will take you places you never imagined. Revelations that challenge everything you think you know about justice, power, and the weight of the last word before death. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next will open doors few have had the chance to walk through, and those doors hold answers that could change everything. It's not just about watching. It's about being part of this movement, this gaze that doesn't remain silent in the face of mystery. This journey is ours. Let's continue together. If these hidden voices were released tomorrow, unleashed upon the world without the veil of secrecy, have you ever stopped to think about what that would change? Imagine the avalanche of reactions, the imprisonment of concepts, the upheaval of the official truth that many have accepted without question. The breaking of paradigms, the deconstruction of certainties. This is what lies within this imposed silence, this invisible wall erected to keep what has been said from the reach of the public's eyes and ears. Every sealed recording, every suppressed word, carries the potential to transform not only individual cases, but the entire way we view the system. After all, if these disturbing testimonies were to come to light, the consequences would extend beyond prison corridors, echoing even into the decisions that shape our society, our perception of justice, guilt, and redemption. What disturbs you most? Which revelation from these 8 interviews shook you to the core? Was it the confession that disproved judgments? The whispered laughter in the silence, frozen in time? Or perhaps the shadow of manipulation that permeates everything, suggesting that what we've been told is just the tip of the iceberg? And if you were asked, has the FBI protected the public, shielding us from unbearable truths? Or is it protecting itself, keeping secrets that could shake structures and reputations? This doubt, this tension between protection and concealment, is what keeps the mystery alive and, at the same time, unsettling. If you feel the weight of these questions as much as I do, leave a comment with which of these revelations disturbed you the most, which you think could change everything if it were revealed. Your voice matters. This isn't just a space for dark stories, it's a place where we seek, together, to understand what truly hides behind the veil of hidden truth. And while these words echo in the silence, the story continues to unfold in the shadows. Because behind every hidden secret, there's a truth that insists on being revealed, and it's this search that keeps us alert, restless, always wanting more. You've made it this far. That says a lot. This journey through the shadows isn't for everyone, but for those who understand that the truth, even hidden, deserves to be questioned. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment. I'm with you until the end. It's a sign, a silent pact between those who seek justice and those who refuse easy lies. The impact of what we saw doesn't end on the screen. It's a call to keep this restlessness alive, this desire to discover what's behind the scenes. A like isn't just a click, it's a response, a sign that this work makes sense, that these stories need to continue being told. And if your mind still craves more, there's a video right here that connects with all of this. There we'll delve into hidden truths that few have dared to touch, into revelations that can change the game. Click and stay with me there. Because this quest doesn't end, it just changes chapters. Here we are more than spectators. We are a community that is not content with silence. Thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to know. The next step is waiting for you.